It is Locked On NBA offseason game night for the night of Tuesday, July 22nd. On today's show, Damian Lillard says Portland is a perfect basketball situation for him. It sounds crazy, but it also might be true. Plus, we get yet another sign that the Lakers are moving towards the future without LeBron James. Let's jump in.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
All right, welcome to Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night in 30 minutes. Wes Goldberg here with Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavaliers, however you might be tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins with FanDuel. Have a jam-packed show for you today. Luka Doncic has been busy recruiting for the Lakers, and more than one contender might be eyeing Ben Simmons. We'll talk about all of that here in a second, but let's start in Portland, where Damian Lillard was reintroduced as a member of the Trailblazers, and he told the media that it was as much a basketball decision as it was a family decision. Here's Mike Richman from Locked On Blazers with more.
His Achilles injury, he was he's obviously going to be 36 and playing his 14th NBA season, and then like yada yada yada. Like, I understand what's going to happen in October of 2026. I have access to a calendar and the sort of understanding of the linear passage of time. But dude's been balling, and so when he sees himself and thinks about himself, he pictures himself balling. He thinks all-star Damian Lillard is going to be back being an all-star, and so when he was making this decision to come home, he said it wasn't just a family decision. It was a basketball decision. And it was probably a basketball decision in his eyes more than it was a family decision. Now, I don't know if I totally believe that, but to hear Dame tell it, he watches this team and he says the Blazers are the type of team that wins in this league because things have changed. And how you win is with youth and with depth and with athleticism. And when he looks at the Blazers, he sees a team that is deep and young and athletic. And if his Damian Lillardness, if Dame is back, letter O, Dame time, whatever you want to call it, if he's back being that as an additive part of the offseason of 2026 and comes in rolling, like he envisions himself coming in rolling, then this group perfectly complements him. He called it the perfect team and the perfect situation. Now that is fierce optimism. A man who is going through a year-long rehab to recover from an Achilles injury called it the perfect situation. There's nobody like him.
So, Danny, do you agree with Dame that this is a perfect basketball situation for him in Portland?
No, I don't, unless, I mean, I think it's the perfect family situation for him, but I think it depends what his goals are. Like, are his goals to just be good again, or are his goals to be a guy that eventually wins a championship? Because I don't see how the Blazers are going to elevate themselves, especially in a fiercely difficult Western Conference West, into a championship contender while Damian Lillard is still in the league. I like a lot of the young pieces they have. Right, Denny Avdia has really become, I think, a very good player in this league. Toumani Camara, I think, is one of the best defenders in basketball. But, man, it is really difficult for me to look at this, and everything that Mike said at the start of it, that is true, where he's going to be 36, coming off of an Achilles tear. He's got a lot of miles on those tires, and I don't look at his game as one that's going to be real easy to recover from a torn Achilles. Like, I look at some of the other guys that tore their Achilles, which is very unfortunate this postseason. When you think about Tyrese Halliburton, when you think about Jason Tatum as well, and those guys are younger, and I expect them because of that to be able to rehab a little bit better than they are. But even if you look at some of the other guys that have overcome this injury, they have not necessarily been as explosive as athletes as Damian Lillard has been. Like, close your eyes and picture what a Damian Lillard three-pointer looks like. He's got a lot of elevation on his jump shot. And that is something that I look at and say, you know what, I'm just not sure that's going to come back. I'm not sure he's ever going to be not the same player that he was, because I think that's an unfair expectation. But I'm not sure that Damian Lillard is ever going to be an additive player to a winning situation again. It's an unfortunate truth to say, but I don't know how you can look at a guy like that and say, yes, this is the perfect basketball situation for winning based on those things.
Yeah, it's great to be optimistic the way that Damian Lillard is optimistic. But to your point, you just don't see it, man. Like, it sucks, but you just don't see it with guys his age. And it's such a great point you make about he's not the run and jump athlete, right? That you might be, oh, that's a high up, but he's a high athleticism guy. Even when it comes to his pick and roll stuff or trying to come off of a screen like that, that takes burst. That takes the Achilles tendon. That takes a quick first step. And if that stuff just isn't quite where it was, shooting mechanics, any great shooter will tell you it starts with the bottom up. And if the bottom is a little bit off by 10, 20, 30%, whatever it is, it just changes everything. And it's not to say that Lillard can't figure it out. And I mean, he's got unquestionable touch on his jumper and things like that too, but you don't know until you know it. That said, I think it is for Dame as good a basketball and family situation and a personal situation as there is right now in the league. If he's never going to impact winning at that level that he had impacted winning prior, then I guess it doesn't really make a difference where he plays. If the idea was to win a championship, that's probably gone. Damian Lillard will probably never win a championship in his career. And so you think, okay, well, if I'm not going to win a championship, then what is a good situation for me? You look at Portland's roster, he's playing with a guy next to him in Drew Holiday when he comes back ostensibly. That he's never quite played like a guy like Drew Holiday before. He's always needed a Drew Holiday. Instead, he was always saddled with like a CJ McCollum or another scoring guard, where Holiday is the kind of guy who could pick up the toughest assignment and hide some of his deficiencies defensively. Again, Dame's never had that before. You look behind him defensively. You mentioned Tamani Kamara. Donovan Klingland is already an impact defender. There's Robert Williams coming off the bench. Jeremy Grant, if he's engaged, can be a very high-level defender. Like there's a lot of length and there's a lot of defense on this roster that might be able to help Damian Lillard when he comes back, where we're not noticing maybe that decline quite as much on the defensive end. But yeah, I think it's a fine basketball fit for Dame, even if it's not one that leads to a ton of winning for Portland.
So the one thing from that, because I do think you're right about that, like he is playing on a Blazers team that looks so much different just stylistically from what the Blazers looked like when Dame was in his prime with that organization. But Drew Holiday is the exact type of player that would have been a perfect fit alongside Dame 5, 6, 7 years ago when the Blazers were in the playoffs every year and made that run to the conference finals. I believe that was in 2018 or 2017 when they did. But Drew Holiday, if he ever plays alongside Damian Lillard, when they play their first game together, Drew's going to be 36 too. Like we're not also going to be speaking about the peak defender that Drew Holiday was in his prime. We're going to be talking about a version of Drew Holiday that has also lost some of his athleticism if he's even in Portland a year from now, which I think is a very fair question to ask too. So while right now on paper, you can say, sure, this basketball situation looks good, but I also do think we need to remember, look how much changes from team to team, year to year in the NBA. Like the Blazers, the way they look right now could look drastically different 12 months from now. And even then, we'll be 3.5 months before we ever see Dame play in that uniform again.
One other thing that Chauncey Billups mentioned in this press conference, and he was sort of joking, but maybe not really joking, that Damian Lillard was going to be the highest paid assistant coach in the NBA this season, obviously because he'll be recovering from this Achilles for the entire year, and now he gets to mentor a guy like Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe and all these other guys. You hope that assistant coaching job and joke is sort of just a one-year thing, because I hate being so down on a guy like Damian Lillard because we all love Dame, but it's like you don't know what it looks like. But I'm excited to try to see it. All right, last word on this, Danny. You got anything else?
Well, it sucks because it is such a good story. Like I think it's so easy to root for Dame. It's so easy to root for this story and Portland. Like it is the storybook ending. It's just the basketball watcher in me has kind of seen these things before, and they just don't often turn out as the storybook ending that we'd all like them to be.
I kind of like this Portland team, absent the Damian Lillard piece of it, the big question mark. Like there's good players on this team, Denny Avdia, Donovan Klingland, Tamani Kamara. And if Dame, if all he does is mentor these young guys and turn them into better basketball players, maybe that's a win with all, the retirement stuff and the, end of his career and all the good vibes as part of it as well. Coming up, Luka Doncic reportedly helped bring Marcus Smart to the Lakers, but is this yet another sign that the organization plans to move forward without LeBron James? That's coming up next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. Are you new to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here with Locked On NBA, every game, every night, NBA game night. Best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast app. Let's go to Los Angeles. Luka Doncic reportedly called Marcus Smart and helped bring him to the Lakers. According to Brian Windhorst, Luka called Smart a couple of times this offseason and is working, quote, in concert with the Lakers front office. Danny, are you buying or selling Luka as a Lakers recruiter?
I'm buying this. I think that Luka understands, and while I think clear heartbreak that he had after being traded from Dallas in such an unexpected fashion, and all reports seem to indicate that Luka would have been happy to spend his entire career in Dallas, but I think he landed in a pretty good situation. Not that I am a huge believer in what the Lakers have right now as far as the roster goes. I don't buy them as a championship contender as they are currently constructed this season, but good things always happen for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think Luka kind of understands that. And I think once he got over the initial shock of being traded from a place that he loved to a different place and having his heart broken in that sense, I do think it became, okay, I'm in a good spot. Things can work here. I can win a title here because every star that has, for the most part, been in their prime and played in Los Angeles did win a title there. So I think he is buying into that. And I think that the thing that's going to come up in a couple of weeks is when he is eligible to sign that contract extension on August 2nd, hearing things about this, that he is calling guys, that he is operating as a recruiter. I do think if you're a Lakers fan right now, you should feel pretty good about Luka signing that extension, even if it doesn't get done on that exact day.
Yeah, I agree. All this sort of points towards Luka remaining a part of the Lakers long term because he's acting as a partner with the Lakers, right? He is the recruiter. And if there's one thing about Luka, you don't see this with every star. With Luka, you definitely see this. He has never been shy of telling the front office in Dallas and now with the Lakers what kind of players he wants to play with, specifically who he wants to play with, and then going out and helping and get those guys. Like he was not shy about letting the Mavericks front office know, hey, I want to play with a guy like Daniel Gafford. Go get me a lob threat. Hey, go draft a guy like Derek Lively. Go get a guy like PJ Washington, who I could just kick out to in the corner and has this 40% percentage from shooting from the corners. Like, he knows the kind of basketball players he wants to play with, and he's not shy to let the front office know. And again, you don't see stars act like that all the time. Luka, you see it, and you're seeing that now with the Lakers. And we've already heard stories about, Rob Pelinka and JJ Redick taking Luka out to dinner without LeBron James, right? Kind of talking through things about what the plan is going forward. And if Luka's going to be working hand in hand with the front office, and NBA players are smart, they know, hey, if I play with Luka, it's a lot like playing with LeBron a few years ago. I'm gonna win a bunch of games, I'm gonna make a lot of money, and it's gonna be better for my career. Oh, and by the way, now you get to do it in Los Angeles, which doesn't hurt either. So I like it. What I'm very interested to see, Danny, is going forward. It's one thing when it's Marcus Smart or DeAndre Ayton on a buyout, or even like a Jake LaRavia type. What does it mean when the Lakers could potentially create max cap space in 2027? That to me is going to be the interesting part, because you see the Lakers and the Clippers are the two teams maybe at the front of the line, making sure that they're maintaining flexibility for 2027, where both of these teams are going to have the opportunity to create max cap space and really chase some of those free agents that are going to be out there in 2027. The difference between the Lakers and the Clippers is that the Clippers, they get to max cap space by moving past Kawhi Leonard, going on without Kawhi, no more James Harden, no more Bradley Beal. Like, all those guys are going to be off the books. It's going to be a clean slate for them. Whereas for the Lakers, they'll be able to attract players by saying, you get to play with Luka. That to me is the interesting part.
I do think that is very interesting, but I also think that we are in a time in the NBA, and maybe not historically where it's mattered the least, but I don't think that having max cap space right now matters nearly as much as it did a decade ago. Because look at all of these guys where they have come to the realization that from a business standpoint, it makes sense for all of them to just sign the extension with wherever they're at. And if they don't like it, they can figure it out later. And they can take the money now. They can sign up long-term. And then they know, because there's a lot of precedent for this. Hey, if I don't want to be here, I can just demand a trade and I can get wherever I want to go, because that is how the NBA works today's day and age. So I don't buy that max cap space is the way the Lakers are going to need to build their team. What I do think makes sense for them is trying to accumulate as many assets as they can, because there will be, and you know this, there will be another star that becomes disgruntled in the next 2 years. I don't know who it's going to be. You don't know who it's going to be. Maybe it'll be Jimmy Butler again, even though I don't think he'll be worth it. But there will be another star that's like that, that's going to want to force their way to Los Angeles. And I think it is more important for the Lakers to be in position to be able to make that trade than it is for them to try and sign somebody outright in free agency, because I think the pool of guys in which they could get via trade is better and makes their team more championship worthy than the pool of guys that could be maybe potentially available in free agency.
Okay, while I don't disagree with anything you just said, you did kind of ruin my next question, so I'm going to ask it anyway. I have a list of 2027 NBA free agents in front of me. So I just want to ask you, disregard everything you just said, as correct and as accurate as it might be, and tell me which one of these guys do you like as a potential Luka partner in Los Angeles, because that's way more fun. Steph Curry. And by the way, to your point, all these guys could potentially sign extensions, but right now they are currently 2027 free agents. Steph Curry, Giannis, Nikola Jokic is the one that keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns could potentially be available. Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, all these guys could potentially be free agents. Which one of those top guys, just in a fantasy draft kind of world, do you like most next to Luka?
I mean, in a fantasy draft, I think it's Nikola Jokic, and I wish Steph Curry were younger at this point, because I think he'll be 39. Know what to expect from Steph, but I think that Luka and Jokic playing basketball together would just be some unprecedented levels of beautiful basketball between two guys that are just unbelievable passers, two of the best passers in basketball. And having another playmaker the caliber of Luka on the floor alongside Luka, which Nikola Jokic is, I think, even better than him at that stuff, I think would just be so cool as a basketball fan to be able to watch. And then Steph, because of the way that he has gravity on defense, that would make Luka's life so easy. I just don't know that Steph, one, is ever going to play for a team not the Warriors, and two, what Steph is going to be when he's 40 years old.
There's one guy I did not mention who could be a free agent in 2027. That would be very funny and very interesting. What if Anthony Davis leaves the Dallas Mavericks and re-signs to the Lakers? Matt, the Dallas Mavericks at that point are fully in on Cooper Flagg. They're moving into that timeline. Anthony Davis is getting a little bit older, and Anthony Davis goes, you know what? I still got my place in LA. I'm going back. LeBron leaves. Anthony Davis returns. Anthony Davis plays with Luka on the Lakers.
Well, do the Lakers finally have a center to make Anthony Davis happy? Like, would that have to be part of the deal too, that they can't just sign Anthony Davis? They have to sign somebody to play center with him.
Andre Ayton, long-term piece in LA. All right, we're going to end our Lakers talk there. Coming up, we play a game of buy or sell, including Ben Simmons is drawing the eyes of a few different NBA contenders. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Welcome back to Locked On NBA Game Night. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast app. We're called Locked On NBA Game Night. Although it's the offseason, we are still going every single day. Grab your fun money, Danny, because it's time to wrap up things the way we always do on Tuesday with a game of buy or sell. We're going to start with this. The Celtics, Suns, Kings, and Knicks are among the teams interested in Ben Simmons, according to Mark Stein. Danny, buy or sell that Ben Simmons can help either of these teams?
I'm going to sell that because I don't look at Ben Simmons, and you can go through that list of teams. And I know that the Celtics are not going to be a championship contender this year while they deal with the Jason Tatum Achilles tear that's going to most likely cost him the entire year. But Ben Simmons is not a guy that I look at that can play in the postseason. And I think all of those teams to varying degrees have a level of postseason aspiration. And I just don't think that he is a guy that he is maybe an 82 game player. Like he can help you for 15 minutes a night in the regular season, but he's certainly not a postseason player. And I just, because of that, I'm going to sell. Where do you come out on that?
Am I crazy for kind of liking him on the Celtics?
I mean, like it could be fun for a team that doesn't have title aspirations this year.
Right.
Like of those, could it be fun? Could he be like this fun, undersized Luke Cornett replacement? Maybe, but that can do more with the basketball. Sure.
They need ball handling. They need a center. He's both. Could he just do the thing that Jason Tatum did in terms of bringing the ball up half court and none of the other things that Jason Tatum did? But he could bring the ball up court on offense. I still don't know who I want running my offense, right? Like Derek White is awesome. Do I want him running my offense full time? It feels like it takes away from some of the off-ball stuff that Derek White does at a really high level. It's not to say that Derek White isn't capable of doing it. I like so much of the off-ball stuff that he also does that I don't want to take that away from his game completely. Jaylen Brown, limited as an on-ball player, I think it's safe to say. They still have Anthony Simons on the roster for now. I don't know what the plan is there. They kind of need a guy who could just sort of bring the ball up. I kind of wonder if that could be Ben Simmons. And then on the defensive end, you could just put him at center and kind of get into some interesting lineups. I don't know. I feel like Joe Mazzulla would have fun kind of tinkering with Ben Simmons, but then would also get very irritated with Ben Simmons pretty early on because it feels like they have the opposite type of personalities.
That would be, I think, oil and water. And also it would just take away from full-time Peyton Pritchard point guard minutes, which I think everybody should be rooting for in Boston.
Kings don't do it, right?
Could you imagine him sharing the floor with Sabonis? Like that would just not work at all. Of the teams that you listed, and I understand that the Kings are just kind of the Chicago Bulls of the West at this point. I don't know that there's a worse fit than the Kings.
The Knicks is not a great fit. The New York media
it's better than the Kings.
Nice to Ben Simmons. It is better than the Kings. I don't mind the Suns fit either, but it feels like he could weirdly get buried there where it just feels like he could walk into playing time with the Celtics. And I don't know. I kind of want to see. Out of curiosity what it would look like.
I think for him, the Suns would actually be the best fit because everyone is expecting the Suns to just be bad this year, right? Like that is a situation
that's true.
Where I think he could go to, and he's never going to fully rehabilitate his basketball image to being a guy that, once upon a time was an all NBA player. He's never going to get back to that again. But I do wonder if going to a low pressure situation where they don't have, I mean, maybe some people do, but I don't think they necessarily have the illusion of being a winning team this year on their horizons. That could be a low pressure situation where he can just, hey, I'm going to go play basketball. It's really nice in Phoenix during the season. That could be the best potential fit, I think.
Rich Paul went on SiriusXM and said that Brandon Ingram would not have gotten the $40 million a year deal that he got from the Raptors if he had been an unrestricted free agent. Danny, do you buy or sell his take on Brandon Ingram?
100% buy that. I don't know a team out there that would have given Brandon Ingram $40 million. I'm surprised the Toronto Raptors gave Brandon Ingram $40 million. And this goes back to what we were talking about with the cap space issue for the Lakers. Like if you're Brandon Ingram and you got $40 million from anybody, you say yes. I don't know. I'm surprised the Raptors did this. I don't think any team, and you look at who had cap space, and it's not as if there were a lot of teams that had cap space this year. Like Detroit had avenues to get there, obviously Brooklyn, but those teams weren't going to give Brandon Ingram that amount of money. Like this was the one place that he could get it, and the only way he was going to get it was if they had their bird right. So I 100% am in agreement with Rich there. What do you think?
I'm buying this as much as anything I've ever heard Rich Paul say publicly. This is 100% accurate, and it makes you really, everything you just said is correct too, Danny. And I just why did the Raptors do this? It felt like they were negotiating against themselves. They couldn't have approached Brandon Ingram with $30 million a year. Like that, I don't even think $30 million a year would have been out there for him this offseason.
That is one of the things that I do think we have to watch for more now because of the way that the NBA is set up financially with this apron system. look at what Houston has done this offseason, where they've been in spots where they've kind of been negotiating against themselves. And it's very easy. And it wasn't just this offseason, because I think that Jalen Green, when he signed his extension there, is a good example of this too.
Yeah.
When teams have leverage, they've often just decided to not use that leverage for sake of keeping a player relationship good. Where is a guy a borderline max player? Maybe we'll give him the max anyways. And it hasn't necessarily been as painful as it is about to be. I think that this is a move, and I'm not very high on the Toronto Raptors going into this season. I don't know where you come out on them, but this is a move that I think is going to make it harder for them to build in the future, because now who's trading for Brandon Ingram too at that number? I can't think of teams that would want Brandon Ingram at $40 million a year.
And to your point, Brandon Ingram is the type of player that used to just get something close to the max, if not the max, for all the reasons that you already stated. And just, hey, it's close enough. We didn't have these first and second aprons before. We just had an expensive roster, and that's the owner's problem, not really ours, right? And that's sort of where teams, whether it was Brandon Ingram or Zach LaVine or even Bradley Beal, these guys just got the money. And we're entering a new world where, there wasn't this middle part of something that was like, there was no player that made something more than the taxpayer or the non-taxpayer mid-level and the max. You were either sort of a non-taxpayer mid-level guy making $10 to $15 million a year, or a max level player making $30-40 million a year. There was not really a middle ground, and there was no real room for negotiation, even though when you have these players' bird rights, you could pay them anything, right? You could pay them anywhere between $1 and the max amount. So, or, not $1, but the veteran minimum at least.
Yeah, I think that hurts some labor laws. I don't think you can play for just $1.
Right. But I think we're gonna enter a world at some point where the Brandon Ingram, Zach LaVine type of players, who are very good basketball players, but something fringe all-star, less than all NBA, like they're in that sort of weird middle ground area. I think we're going to at some point get to an offseason where we're actually going to negotiate with these guys. And front offices and agents are going to have to actually do their jobs and do a real negotiation instead of just slotting them into whether it's the mid-level or the max slot or whatever it is. They're going to have to come to the table and have a real negotiation. Hey, your client is really good. We just don't think he's that good. Where can we come down on? And if you don't like it, go out into the market and see what you can earn out there. Because again, Rich Paul's saying, had Brandon Ingram done that, he would not have gotten $40 million a year. And so I think we're entering an interesting time. Last one here, Danny. After getting waived by the Hornets, Josh Okogie has agreed to a 1-year, $3.1 million deal with the Rockets, according to ESPN. The Rockets add another wing defender to their roster. Buy or sell Okogie as a useful addition in Houston.
I will sell this because I think Houston doesn't necessarily need him. Like, I think Josh is a good insurance policy for them with what they already have on their roster. But I think if you're looking at the Houston Rockets and they're counting on Josh Okogie to play 12 to 15 minutes a game in the playoffs, I'm not going to pick them to win that playoff series. And I like Josh Okogie. I thought he was going to be a better player coming into the NBA when he was drafted by Minnesota way back when. It hasn't necessarily panned out for him for whatever reason, mostly because he hasn't been able to figure out the shot. But if he is playing significant playoff minutes, I'm going to pick the team that Houston is playing in that series to win that series.
So you look at Houston's depth chart right now, they've got like 10 or 11 guys who can play real minutes, at least in the regular season. I'm buying this for Houston. I like it. I think they just need more volume defenders after Dillon Brooks left. They obviously added Dorian Finney-Smith earlier. He's more of the direct Dillon Brooks replacement, but they also had a guy like Okogie. To me, it's just for them, they play so physically and they play so hard, and that is such a big part of what makes the Houston Rockets under Ime Udoka, that can wear on them. And to me, I think they just need to be fresh for the playoffs. So if Okogie's a guy who's logging a bunch of minutes during the regular season and just sort of an innings eater for them, then I like it. At $3.1 million, that's fine, right? I don't know if they expect him to be a part of their playoff rotation. I hope not. But then again, if they're dealing with some sort of injuries or something like that, then maybe he does step into something, and at least you know that he's an NBA player at that point. But I don't mind it. But clearly between him, between DFS, between Clint Capella, they are loading up on depth. They have made a decision. Hey, deeper teams, they go further. We just need depth, and that's the direction they're going in. So I don't mind it.
I think that is the way that a lot of teams in the NBA approach this offseason. They saw what Oklahoma City was able to do, where they had a lot of guys that you could not play off the floor in the postseason. And I think the same could be said for the way the Indiana Pacers were built. And I think you're seeing a lot of teams, and Houston is maybe not with this move, but I think Houston has certainly tried to build their team in a way that, we don't have a lot of guys that are not stars that are one-way players.
That wraps up Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. For Danny Cunningham, I'm Wes Goldberg, and this has been Game Night. Thanks for hanging out with us.